Mike Pompeo went on the Sunday shows to do propaganda and deflect blame for COVID-19 to China, but he messed up here. And he messed up because he instantly contradicted himself.
Have you seen anything that gives you high confidence that it originated in that Wuhan lab?
Martha, there's enormous evidence that that's where this began. We've said from the beginning that this was a virus that originated in Wuhan, China. We took a lot of grief for that from the outset, but I think the whole world can see now. Remember, China has a history of infecting the world, and they have a history of running substandard laboratories. These are not the first times that we've had a world exposed to viruses as a result of failures in a Chinese lab. And so while the intelligence community continues to do its work, they should continue to do that and verify so that we are certain. I can tell you that there is a significant amount of evidence that this came from that laboratory in Wuhan.
Do you believe it was man-made or genetically modified?
Look, the best experts so far seem to think it was man-made. I have no reason to disbelieve that at this point.
Your Office of the DNI says the consensus, the scientific consensus, was not man-made or genetically modified.
That's right. I agree with that. Yeah, I've seen their analysis. I've seen the summary that you saw that was released publicly. I have no reason to doubt that that is accurate at this point.
Okay, so just to be clear, you do not think it was man-made or genetically modified?
I've seen what the intelligence community has said. I have no reason to believe that they've got it wrong.
So he says, oh, yeah, no, it's most of the experts say it's man-made. Man-made in the Wuhan lab. And then she follows up and says, well, actually, the intelligence report says the opposite, that it's not. And he's like, right, it's definitely not. What are you saying? Listen, he's a propagandist and he's sloppy. So he's just whatever. He just says whatever. He's contradicting himself. But everybody needs to understand exactly what's going on here, okay? Because this is a difficult conversation and there are many layers to it. But what the Trump administration is doing, there's a concerted effort to talk about China a lot and put them front and center, nonstop. Now, why? Why are they doing that? Well, very simply, they botched the response to COVID-19 early on. They denied it, they downplayed it, they lied about it, and it got worse and worse and worse, and then eventually they got slapped in the face with the reality of how bad it is. But they did such a bad job originally, and they don't want people talking about that. They don't want people acknowledging the fact that they've been a mess since the beginning. So what do? Politics 101, scapegoat, deflect blame. And so what you do is you take something that has a kernel of truth in it, and then you use that as the main argument. And the kernel of truth is that, yes, China downplayed it, lied about it early on. Now, we learned pretty quickly, though, that this thing is contagious and it does go human to human and all that stuff. But take the fact that they lied about it early on and they downplayed it early on in the same way that we did. But they downplayed it, they lied about it, and then use that as evidence of nefarious motives. And then if you shift the conversation now to China bad, well, then you can ultimately deflect blame for the entire conversation and cover up all of your mistakes and say, oh, the real problem is them. Oh, the real problem is, they lied about it, they downplayed it, and now they're going as far in some instances to say as, well, the real problem is they made it in a Wuhan lab. And then sometimes they say, oh, it was made in a Wuhan lab, but they released it and it wasn't on purpose, that was an accident. And then sometimes people go as far as to say, oh no, it's like a bioweapon that they used and they released on purpose. But either way, now the entire conversation is not about the common sense, logical, public policy response that we should have done here and what we should do moving forward. Now the entire conversation is China bad. Now we need to crack down on China. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. This is not me saying, hey, it's totally cool that our supply lines, our supply chains go all the way back to China for virtually everything. Because that's not cool. And I want to increase manufacturing in this country. Whatever we can make here, I think we should make here. So, my left-leaning economic ideas are not, impacted by my realization that these guys are total scoundrels trying to deflect blame. But I'm just pointing out that that is a fact, that that's what they're trying to do. And by the way, the Democrats are so dumb, they walk right down that path with the Republicans instead of changing the conversation right back to, whoa, you're deflecting blame because you guys were downplaying it for months. So instead of saying that, Biden's response is, oh yeah, you're tough on China, Don? I'm tougher than you. I'm even tougher than you are on China. And it's like, oh no, so we're right back into a Cold War type scenario where you have a bunch of idiots in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party competing as to who can escalate more and who can raise tensions more with one of the most powerful countries in the world, China. Okay, I don't want that. I don't want to raise tensions. I don't want to slap them in the face repeatedly. I don't want to scapegoat to the point where we overlook the things that we did wrong here. I don't want to push towards the brink of military conflict, God forbid. So I want to go in the other direction. But the Biden team is so silly that they didn't realize, like, oh no, just point out what they're doing. Why do you guys keep talking about China? You're talking about China because you're trying to deflect all blame for your terrible mistakes. That's why you're talking about China. And that is the truth. And by the way, I said it before, I'll say it again. It's hilarious that their main argument originally is, well, they lied about it and downplayed it, and that's unacceptable. Yeah, but we literally did the exact same thing here. We lied about it and we downplayed it. So if you're going to hate them, you got to hate yourself too, because you did the exact same thing. And if the U.S. was in the exact same position as China, if it originated here, we would have done the same thing again. So it's not like this isn't helpful, but they're doing it for electoral reasons. Oh, if we completely deflect blame to China and say it over and over and over, and that becomes the conversation, then nobody is talking about how terrible our original response was. That's the goal. That's the plan. They're going to keep doing it. And unfortunately, man, I see so many people just agree to the framing and agree to the conversation. And like now you see there are a lot of conspiracies out there now about how, you know, not only did it develop in a Wuhan lab, but it developed in a Wuhan lab and it was released on purpose and it's a bioweapon and they're trying to destroy our economy and destroy the world economy. Guys, literally nobody wants this to happen. Nobody. You know, it hurt the world economy, not just the U.S. economy. And guess what? The people who really run the world, the people who are really in control, are the captains of industry. It's the owner class. Okay, these are the people who run the world. Not a single person in the owner class, not a single elite in any country wanted this to happen. In fact, it's hurting them. So since it's hurting them, to think that this was some sort of an elaborate scheme to tank just the U.S. economy or to tank just China's enemies or whatever it might be, honestly, it's a preposterous conspiracy theory. And it doesn't pass, like, the smell test. It doesn't pass a basic cursory examination. So, but that's where we're at. They'd rather be conspiracy theorists and, like, have the most grandiose claims against China than just take basic ownership and responsibility of the crisis.